Hello, welcome to the 38th edition of Drive-Thru Review. Today we're going to talk about GOSU. This is the second part in a little two-parter with innovation and GOSU. These games, not really a lot in common, but as far as the card game genre goes, the pure card game goes, I think these two sort of deserve a look, probably together. Um, like I said in the first video, if you haven't seen that, there's a lot going on the people's boards or their tableaus or their personal displays or whatever you want to call it in front of them. Uh, there's not a lot of card games like that, really. I mean, you've got like Race for the Galaxy and San Juan where you're doing that, but there's no interaction between the players, really. Yes, there's invading planets and some expansion, but these games sort of take, they push beyond the choosing of roles and as the sole mechanism of pacing into, the actual card abilities and, kind of driving forward to, an innovation, the level 8, level 9, level 10 cards, where this is, pushing up and trying to get those key abilities to lock down your opponent and progress past your opponent in terms of this game in GOSU. So let's take a look at how you play GOSU, and then I'll come back.
Alright, first of all, coolest box cover art ever. The name of the game is not even on the face of the box cover. It's on the side. The face is just a bunch of different goblins looking mean. Okay, so you get basically 5 different factions of goblins. There's 20 in each. They come in different levels, 1, 2, and 3. Varying abilities, you can see the text on the bottom of the cards. You get activation token. You randomly choose who gets this. He starts the game. And there's powers on the goblins that will allow this to pass back and forth to take it from any other player. So whoever has this will break ties, and possibly some other abilities will trigger off of this, and then whoever has this will lead off each round. Each player gets 2 of these activation tokens. They are used to, you can spend these to draw a card, and then some of the abilities on the goblins require you to spend these. And then you've got your victory point markers here. It's like a bloody V. Let me just tell you a little bit about the different types of goblins. Let's look at the white goblins here. So the white goblins are pretty much based around drawing cards and getting more cards in your hand. You're not going to draw cards at the start of your turn or anything like that. You're going to have to use your tokens down there and the abilities of the white goblins and some other goblins to draw cards. Just real quick, you can see the art on these cards is ridiculous. It's awesome. You got your card text here. You have the level of the goblin there, and then you have sort of the attack power of the goblin. Now you don't do any attacking on your turn necessarily. You're just going to be triggering these effects as you come into play. And then at the end of each round, after both players have passed, this power of the goblin, you're going to add up all the goblins in front of you, and whoever has the most power wins. If there's a tie, the person with the activation token breaks the tie. Some of the goblins have a mutation cost, which means you can get rid of them. They'll basically die or mutate, and then you'll replace them with an equal level goblin. You can never replace them with the same goblin of the same name, but that will only happen in a level 1 goblin. There's 2 of each level 1 goblin, and the level 2s and 3s are unique. So see, there's a level 1 goblin. And the ones here with the little halo around their level, these basically mean they have a triggered effect. So you can see this guy says, when you lose a great battle, and that's the battle at the end of the turn, draw 2 cards. So you should always be kind of looking at the goblins. We should be looking at all of them, to be honest, but the powers of the goblins with the halo, because they'll trigger based on certain events. I'll show you a level 3 goblin there. So he's pretty ornery looking, isn't he? So you see, he's level 3, and he's got 5 power. Whereas that level 2 had 3 power, and the level 1 has 2 power. And all the level 1s have 2 power, and all the level 3s have 5 power, and so on. And the abilities get maybe better to a certain degree the higher up you go. But there's some level 2s that, as you play the game, you'll find the worth of certain cards. Some cards are pretty situational. So it's definitely one of the games, kind of like Innovation, where you need to know the card powers. You need to know when when to use them, when it's a good idea, and the timing of this game is probably more dire and more important than, I don't know, a lot of games I played. You know, trying to think of games where the timing of your actions is very important. You don't want to spend these tokens too quickly. You don't want to put a card out too quickly and leave them vulnerable. So those are the white goblins. Those are drawing cards. So let me just quickly go into the other ones here, and then I'll show you a little bit how to play. The black goblins, or the dark goblins, now these guys are all about trapping cards. So the cards will all be face up in front of you, but if you trap them, you'll put them face down, and they're rendered useless for the rest of the turn. They'll untrap at the end of the turn. And these guys also have the ability to zombie mutate. You can see at the bottom there says zombie mutation for 3, which means instead of exchanging this one with a card from your hand, you can exchange it with a card from your discard pile. This is so important in the game, I can't even tell you. So, zombie mutation. Do it early and often. Anyway, and these guys are generally mean. I guess goblins are all mean, but they're the meaner. Now the red goblins are the other mean goblins, and these guys are instead of trapping cards, they're going to destroy cards. There are a couple cards, especially these level 3s, that will give you an auto win condition. I'll explain more about the win conditions, but and same with some of the other cards, but the level reds have a few of those, but these are more destroying. So you got your drawing, your trapping, your destroying. Now the green ones are kind of card drawing too. They're just in a different sense. You don't seem to draw as many cards with these, but these are pretty useful all around. It's a little bit more chancy. You may like name a faction color and then draw 5 cards, and you keep all of that faction color. That's one of the abilities. But like this guy, when Saul comes into play, each player discards half of the cards in his hand rounded down. So when I said about timing, just to keep this in mind as an example, don't play this when you have more cards than your opponent, right? Because if you play this and it's the last card that you played that round, you're not going to discard any cards. It's not going to hurt you. But if your opponent's got like 7 cards in their hand, then you time this out right, and then he's got to make some tough decisions what to get rid of. So these are cool. They're kind of tricksy like that, the green ones. And these blue ones, I don't know if they're really blue, but these are also sort of tricksy. There's some weird little abilities here. Like one is when you have to reshuffle the discard pile into a new draw deck, you draw 7 cards. So obviously you don't want to just play that lead that's sitting out for the early part of the game when this is pointless. And these and the green ones allow you to pull cards out of the discard pile of this faction and put it back into your hand. So if you're going to go this way, because you kind of have to decide a little bit which faction you're going to choose to, which strategy you're going to pursue based on the faction that you're going with. And these will let you pull ones in that you maybe discarded earlier in the game back in your hand. So that's a little bit of an overview of the goblin types. Let me show quickly the gameplay. Okay, so each player is going to start with 7 cards in their hand, as well as 2 activation tokens, and these are color coordinated for each player. Like I said before, one player will get the activation token. So normally players are just each going to draw a hand of 7 cards, but I think here's just if you're listening to this, still bear with me, because there is an official draft variant, but and I think I've heard the developer say, you know what, let's not make that such a variant anymore. And I don't think it's going to be a variant for like because they have organized play, like tournament play. So what you do with this variant is you draft. Each player draws 7 cards, and I may have the numbers confused. I'm not going to go look it up right this second, but you draw 7 and you keep 2, okay? And then you pass the cards the rest of the cards from your hand and give it to the other player, and he gives it to you. And then you keep 1. And then you pass the cards and you keep 1 out of that, and you pass back and forth until you've got 7 cards in your hand. Because I'm going to show you how to play this, but it's easy to, if you're new, and I'd say, when I first started playing this, I just played it where I drew 7 cards and played it. It was very tough. And then we saw the draft variant. We tried that a few times, and oh my gosh, this game moved from I'm not even going to buy it because I hadn't bought it yet to I'm going to buy this today, like within the hour. And so I did that, and after playing the draft variant, And now that I've played this game several times, I can't even tell you how many times, and now that I've played it a lot, I almost don't want to draft anymore. It's like, give me what you got, and then I'm going to make the best out of it, and it's a little bit more of a challenge. So, but I'd say as you're learning, maybe the first time you play, just draw, because you're not going to really going to know what to keep. But then maybe second, third time, then you start drafting. So, long story short, now each player is going to have an imaginary grid in front of them. So I'm just using the cards here as placeholders, but you're not going to have any cards in front of you to start the game. Now you're going to have 3 rows, and this bottom row is only going to be made up of level 1 cards. Second row can only be level 2 cards, and the top row can only be level 3 cards. And you can only have a total of 15 cards. So you can have 5 cards in each row, and then 3 rows. So 3 times 5 is 15. You can never have any more cards than that in your face-up display. So let's take all these cards out of here, and how do you get these cards into play? Well, your first goblin, your first level 1 goblin, is always going to be free. You're going to play that in the bottom left-hand corner of your grid, your imaginary grid. And then you are allowed to play, once you have a level 1 goblin of a certain color, in this case red, then you're allowed to play a level 2 goblin of that same color. So that's a legal play. Now you've got to always also have enough cards. So if I had like this one here, like that, and then maybe another level 2 goblin, that's not legal. I couldn't come and play this one here. I've got to have one underneath it, even though I still got one of that color. So I can play these for free. I can just put him down, and then since I've got a level 1 red, I can just put a level 2 red on my next turn. Each turn you're just basically going to play a goblin. But then, if I want to play a level 1 of a different color here, like so, I've got to discard 2 cards to pay for that goblin. So you can see, let's take him out of here for right now. Just to get 2 level 1s in play, you've got to have 1 card, 2 cards, 2 cards to discard, so that's 4 cards. Now you're down to 3 cards left. Your hand's running out of cards very quickly. Let's say I had this in play. Now I'm down to 2 cards. So if I wanted to change colors again, let's say I wanted to play this blue goblin, I'd need to have discard 2 other cards. Now once you have a level 1 in play of that color, you can play another one for free. So now I've got this green one, right? So now I can, if I had another level 1 green one, I could just put him right in. So it's sort of like you're paying a loyalty cost to, get the other goblin in. Now let's say I wanted to play this level 3 goblin, that's this green goblin. Well, I can't quite play him yet. I've got a level 1 green goblin, but I don't have a level 2 green goblin. For the 3s you need a 1 and a 2, and then you can do the 3. Simple enough. One other thing I wanted to mention was there's a term called a free card. Okay, so a free card just basically means there's no card to the right of you, or there's no card to the top of you. So in this example, he's a free card and he's a free card. Now a lot of these red cards here are going to destroy free cards, and some of the dark goblins, the black ones, they also will trap some of the free ones because they're more vulnerable. The idea is that you're building sort of this formation and going out here. So the safest card in the whole thing is this guy. So you got to be careful here about what cards you kind of leave dangling. And there's a little bit of cat and mouse kind of thing going on here, where you maybe put a card out and get them to use, that destroy ability on that card, and then you come out with the one that you really like. Or if you think you can sneak one in there and then protect it with some other card, he's got to kind of go through it. Something with an activated ability that's going to cause your opponent issues. You want to try to keep that protected. So that's basically the game. The only other real aspect to this is you've got your activation tokens. So you can spend 1 activation token to draw 1 card, or both activation tokens at the same time to draw 3 cards. And in your early games, don't be afraid to go ahead and use those. Some of the goblins require you to put an activation token on them to use their effect. So once you've used the goblin 1 round, you can't use its effect again. You can only use it once per turn, so you put the token on him. Now most of the goblins are going to have an effect when they come into play. Some of the goblins are going to have an effect when you mutate them. So let me just show you quickly mutation. So he's got 2 mutation costs, which means I can take him, discard him, substitute this guy here, but I've also got to discard 2 cards, which is his mutation cost. Now what the neat thing is you see he's got a mutation cost of 3 and he's a level 2. So I could sneak in a goblin of another color that I don't have a level 1 for into that second row. Okay, remember I still need a 1 and a 2 to get a 3 of that color, but you can sneak in some level 2s that way that you know, if you filled up your first row here and you want to sneak in, you got a really nice level 2 one, you can do it with the mutation. And remember, these dark goblins have zombie mutation, which means I can put him into play. I've got to discard 3 cards. Okay, so if he was in play, I could zombie mutate him. I got to discard 3 cards. And then I can go through the discard pile, let's say that's a discard pile, and grab a goblin of equal level and then put him into play out of the discard pile. Now there are cards, like I said, most of the cards they trigger when they come into play. And some of the cards trigger when you mutate them. And some of the cards, you know, will trigger when other goblins mutate and things like that. So this card has 2 things I wanted to show you. Basically that little symbol means it's an activated ability, so I've got to put a token on there. And the other thing I wanted to show you is draw 3 and then parentheses +1 cards and then discard 2 cards. Well, the +1 is if you are losing on victory points. And I'll explain to you how you get victory points here in just a second. But if you're ever behind on victory points, you're going to get that little bonus. If you're tied, you don't. So it's draw 3 +1, so I draw 4 cards and then discard 2. So how do we resolve battles at the end of the round and then, you know, get our victory points? Well, basically you're going to play. Each person's going to take a turn. You're going to take a turn. I'm going to take a turn. Blah blah blah, back and forth. And then, you know, maybe we're out of our activation tokens. And then once you pass, you're done. You can't do any more actions. And what you do at the end then is you take and you add up the attack value or the strength here on the bottom of the cards here, and you just add them up, and whoever has the most wins. And then if it's a tie, the advantage token breaks the tie. And so when you win, you get a victory point. First one to get 3 victory points wins the game. That's pretty much it.
I hope you enjoyed the overview. I like this game. I like innovation. It's nice to see games where they're using, you know, some fresh mechanics. You know, taking sort of a riff off of, you know, Magic the Gathering type of, you know, cards with abilities on them, and not just there's actually card play involved. You're not just It's not just hand management per se. I mean, that's such a bad term, hand management. What? I'm managing. All right, whatever. But I mean, it makes sense. I get it. But you're not just managing your hand and figuring out which cards, you know, and doing that. There's actually some sort of interaction between you and your opponent here. You know, you're not just like, oh, I'm trying to efficiently manage my hand and, you know, go and buy goods or whatever, ship goods to a galaxy. You know, it's fine. But uh, and I do like some of those games that do that. I'm not here like beating up on those games, but this is a refreshing thing, and it's not like, you know, ooh, this is better than Race for the Galaxy. Is Innovation or GOSU better than Race for the Galaxy? Uh, I think so. Let's say that, but that's not really the point of this. The point is you've got cards to play, and the cards are going to do certain things. And yeah, you know, we can quibble about it, but I think people that have played Magic a lot kind of get what I'm saying. There's a timing back and forth. There's a tension. You know, the role selection and stuff like that. It kind of serves that purpose in there, but there's not really this kind of known structured hierarchical, you know, progression towards a you know, nice. There's not like a story arc to the game. Where Innovation, there's a nice story arc easily. You know, you prehistoric all the way to the internet age. This one is, you know, your forces are starting out really low and weak and meek, and they're building up. You got the big goblins out there with, you know, and you got more effects, you know, going off like fireworks at the end of the game and all that stuff. There's a definite progression. It's not just like, oh look, I got another shipping, you know, friggin' thing, and you know, or I got a mine now or whatever, this alien planet that I could have got at the beginning of the game, I could have got at the end of the game. God, this sounds so harsh. Not meant to be harsh. But anyway, I think these games need, you know, some re-examination, some discussion, and quite enjoyable. So thanks.